The crowbar slipped. She caught herself against the barn door. The impact knocked the breath out of her. She pressed her forehead against the wood and waited for the contraction to pass. Then she picked the crowbar back up. She had tried every key in his drawer. None fit. This door had not opened once in 2 years of marriage. Her husband said it was just storage. Old tools. He said it with the same easy smile he used for everything, and she believed him. She had believed all of it. The bolt gave on the 4th strike. The door swung inward. She stepped into the dark, one hand on her belly, and then she stopped. She stood there without moving. What Sarah found inside that barn changed everything she thought she knew about the man she loved. What was he hiding from her? Stay with me on this one. Sarah Mercer had buried her husband 22 days ago. The funeral was small. Daniel didn't have much family. A brother in Arizona who came for 2 days and left, and a handful of co-workers from the construction firm where he managed projects. People kept using the same word at the service. Steady. Daniel was steady. Reliable. The kind of man you could set your watch by. He was 34 years old. A heart attack behind the wheel on a Tuesday morning. His truck drifted into a ditch just off the county road, half a mile from home. The coroner said he was probably gone before the truck even stopped moving. Sarah was 7 months pregnant when it happened. She found out from a deputy standing at her front door, and she sat down on the porch steps and stayed there for a very long time. Now she was alone in the house they had bought together. A farmhouse on 12 acres in rural Tennessee. No close neighbors. Her own family 3 states away. Her mother kept calling, kept offering to come down. Sarah wasn't ready for that. She needed quiet. She needed the house to still feel like his. She had been going through his things in stages. His clothes first, then his desk. She found the usual. Insurance papers, the deed to the property, a stack of birthday cards she had given him, kept in a rubber band. He had kept every single one. That was a hard afternoon. There were 2 small drawers in the desk. One had pens and a measuring tape. The other had a ring of keys she didn't recognize. 7 keys on the ring. None of them matched anything in the house or the trucks or the storage shed out back. She turned the ring over in her hands and set it on the kitchen counter. She stared at it for 2 days before she made the connection. The barn. It sat at the far end of the property, 150 yards from the house. Old construction, solid. When they bought the land, Daniel mentioned he might convert it someday. Workshop space, maybe. He talked about it the way he talked about a lot of projects. Someday. It was always someday with the barn. What he had never explained was why the door was always locked. Sarah had not pushed on it. She wasn't the suspicious type, and Daniel had never given her reason to be. He came home when he said he would. He called when he was running late. He remembered things, appointments, due dates, the specific brand of crackers she wanted during her first trimester. He was present. He was good to her. She had no doubt about that, not a single one. But she had never been inside that barn. The morning after she found the keys, she went out and tried all 7. The 3rd one fit the lock but wouldn't turn. She worked through all 7 carefully. Not one of them opened the door. She stood there in the cold for a minute, then walked back to the house. That night she couldn't stop thinking about it. She lay in bed with her hand on her belly, going over everything she knew. Daniel built things. He fixed things. He had plans for the barn. None of that was suspicious on its own. Men had workshops. Men kept things in barns. There was nothing wrong with a locked door. Except that there was, and she knew it. A locked door inside a marriage is a statement. Says, not this one thing. She had given him everything. Her trust, her future, a child. And he had kept one door locked from her for 2 full years. She thought about that for a long time. In the morning, she found the crowbar in the storage shed. She told herself she just wanted to see inside. She told herself it was probably nothing. The walk from the house to the barn was short. She got there, stood in front of the door, and felt the weight of the crowbar in both hands. She thought, "This is the last moment before I know." Then she started working the bolt. The inside of the barn was dark. She stood in the doorway until her eyes adjusted. It was not empty. To the left, a workbench. Tools on pegboards. Neat, organized, a real workspace. Drills, clamps, levels, a handsaw on a hook. Daniel's kind of setup. She scanned it quickly, and for just a moment, she almost felt relief. She almost thought, there it is. Just a workshop, just like he said. She was already constructing the story where this was nothing. Then she saw the wall. Someone had framed a partition at the back of the barn. Real framing, drywall, painted white. A door in the center of it closed. She crossed the floor slowly. She pushed the door open. Inside was a room. Not storage. A room. 8 by 10 maybe. A cot along one wall, made up neatly with a blanket and a pillow. A small dresser. A wooden chair. On the dresser, 3 framed photographs. On the floor beside the dresser, a cardboard box sealed with packing tape. Sarah stood in the doorway and did not move. She was not easily rattled. She had grown up in a house where you handled your own problems. She had lived alone in a city for 6 years before she met Daniel. She was tough, and she had always been proud of that. But this was something else. She walked in slowly. She looked at the photographs. The first one was a woman, mid-30s, brown hair, laughing at whoever held the camera, standing in front of a pickup truck. Sarah did not know her. The second was a boy, 5 or 6 years old, dark hair, round face, wide eyes, sitting on a fence post with his arms out for balance, like he was about to tip off. Written in marker on the bottom of the frame, Owen, age 5. Sarah picked up the third photograph. Her hands were steady. She was glad for that. It was Daniel, younger, mid-20s maybe, standing in a backyard somewhere, his arm around the woman from the first photo. The boy in front of them both holding a fishing rod. All 3 of them smiling at whoever held the camera. Family. Sarah set the photograph down carefully. She sat on the cot. She put both hands on her belly and breathed. Then she went for the box. The tape took a while, but she got it off. Under the lid was a folder, thick with papers. Bank statements going back 8 years. Transfers on the 15th of every month. Regular as clockwork. $500 each time going to the same account. The name on the account, Carla Renner. 8 years of transfers. She did the math quickly. Nearly $50,000. Under the folder, a bundle of letters. Handwritten, folded, kept together with a rubber band. She read the top one. From Carla, dated 4 years earlier. It said Owen was starting school. That he had asked about his father. That Carla had told him his dad lived far away and thought about him every single day. She wrote that she wasn't asking for more money. She wasn't asking for anything. She just wanted Daniel to know. Sarah read that letter twice. Then she went back to the box. At the very bottom, under all of it, was a single envelope. Her name on the front, written in Daniel's handwriting. The envelope had never been opened. She held it without opening it for a long time. She turned it over. No postmark. Never mailed. He had written her name on an envelope and placed it in a box in a locked room in a locked barn, and he had never given it to her. He had never found the words or the nerve or the right moment, and now he was gone and the letter was still here, waiting. She opened it. 2 pages, front and back, in Daniel's cramped handwriting. She read it once through, then read it again. He wrote that he had a son, that Owen was born before Daniel had, as he put it, sorted himself out, that the relationship with Carla had ended badly, that he had made mistakes and spent years trying to make them right, that he had been sending money every month, that he saw Owen a few times a year, on trips he had told Sarah were work-related. He wrote that he had planned to tell her. He wanted to wait until after the baby came, until they were settled, until he found the right words. He wrote that there were no right words for what he should have said from the very beginning, and he knew that. He had always known that. He wrote that he loved her, that she had shown him what he was capable of, that keeping this secret was the worst thing he had done in his adult life, and he was ashamed of it every single day. The last lines, "If you're reading this without me here, I'm so sorry. You deserved the truth from day one. I was afraid you'd leave, and I couldn't stand that thought. I was a coward about this one thing. I'm sorry, Sarah." She folded the letter. She put it back in the envelope. She sat in that small room her husband had built, the room she had never seen, in the barn she had never entered, and she held the letter against her chest. The baby kicked. Hard, urgent, like she was trying to get her mother's attention. Sarah pressed her palm flat against her belly and breathed. She thought about the man she had married, the man who remembered the crackers, who kept every birthday card, who worked Saturdays so she could sleep in, who had, for 2 years, smiled at her across the dinner table and said nothing while carrying all of this. She was angry, genuinely angry, but she also understood something about fear, about the kind of mistake that doesn't get smaller the longer you carry it, about a man who loved his wife and his son and could not figure out how to hold both truths at once. She set the letter on the dresser next to the photographs. She pressed her hand flat against the wall for a moment. Then she exhaled slowly. The worst was over, she thought. She had the truth now. A woman named Carla, a boy named Owen. Daniel had taken care of them, hidden them from her, and died before he could explain. It was a wound, but it was a defined wound, and defined things could be healed. She picked up her phone from the dresser where she had left it. She was thinking she should call her mother. The phone lit up before she could dial. Unknown number. Incoming call. She stared at the screen for a moment. Then she answered it. The voice on the other end was a woman's. Careful, controlled, like someone who had rehearsed what she was going to say. "Is this Sarah Mercer?" "It is." A pause. "My name is Carla Renner. I'm calling about Daniel." Sarah didn't speak right away. She was still standing in the small room, looking at the photograph of this woman on the dresser in front of her. "I know who you are," Sarah said. Another pause, longer. Then, "He told you?" "No. He didn't tell me anything." She heard the woman processing that. A slow breath. Then, "Oh, so you found." "I found the barn." Silence. Carla spoke first. "I'm so sorry. I know this is a terrible time to call. I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't urgent." Sarah sat back down on the cot. "What do you want?" "It's about Owen." She already knew it would be. She waited. "Owen is sick." Carla's voice was still controlled, but something underneath it was starting to crack. "He was diagnosed 8 months ago. Bone marrow failure. It's a rare condition and he needs a transplant to survive. We've been searching for a donor match for months. Nothing. His doctors said the best chance was always a biological relative." Sarah's throat tightened. "Daniel was tested 6 weeks ago, before the accident. He was a match. He had already agreed to donate. There was a procedure date set." Her voice broke on the last word. "And then he died." Sarah pressed her hand to her chest. She didn't say anything. "His brother doesn't match. There are no other known relatives who've been tested. And Owen's doctor said." Carla stopped. She gathered herself. "They said that a sibling from the same father has the highest chance of being a match. Better than anyone else they could find." The room went very quiet. Sarah understood where this was going before Carla said it. "Your baby," Carla said. "Cord blood from the delivery. It might be enough. It might be the only real option we have left." Now here's the thing. Sarah was a composed person. She had been composed through all of this. Through the deputy at the door, through the funeral, through the barn, through the letter. She had held herself together because that was what she knew how to do. But she walked outside. She needed air. She needed to be standing on the ground with the sky above her. She stood in the November cold with the phone against her ear and her eyes on the tree line. "How old is Owen?" she asked. She already knew. She needed to hear it. "He'll be 7 in March." A pause. "He's a really good kid, Sarah." She thought about the photograph. The boy on the fence post with his arms out for balance. The big eyes. The fishing rod. Daniel's son. She thought about what she had felt reading that letter. The anger. The grief. The complicated, reluctant understanding. And now this. Now a child's life on one side and her own shattered sense of trust on the other. "I don't need an answer right now," Carla said. "I know you just found out. But I couldn't wait any longer." "How much time does he have?" A pause. "Months. Maybe less." Sarah turned and walked back toward the house. She was already thinking through it the way she always thought through hard things. One step, one decision, one fact at a time. "I need a few days," she said. "Okay." Carla's voice had gone very quiet. "Thank you for not hanging up." Sarah almost said, "I thought about it." Instead she said, "I'll call you back in 2 days." She hung up and stood in the yard between the house and the barn, equidistant between them. 2 buildings, 2 lives, both of them his. She went inside and sat at the kitchen table with a glass of water and the ring of keys still sitting where she had left them. She looked at those keys for a long time. Then she called her mother. She talked for 2 hours. She told her everything, the barn, the room, the photographs, the letter, the phone call, all of it. Her mother listened without interrupting, which was not easy for her. When Sarah finished, her mother was quiet. Then she said, "What does your gut tell you?" "My gut tells me that boy didn't do anything wrong," Sarah said. "No," her mother said. "He didn't. And I don't know yet if cord blood collection even affects my baby. I don't know anything medically. I need to talk to a doctor before I agree to anything." "Then talk to a doctor first," her mother said. "Get the facts. Then decide. That's all you can do." It was good advice. Simple and direct. Sarah wrote down the name of the hospital Carla had mentioned. She looked it up. She called her OB first thing the next morning. If you're still with me, hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more story to go. The OB said cord blood donation carried no risk to the baby. The blood came from the umbilical cord after delivery. The baby had no use for it. It was either banked, discarded, or donated, and most families never thought about it at all. The process was the same either way. The only difference was where the blood went. There was one catch. Sarah was already late in her pregnancy. The collection had to be arranged in advance, within the next few weeks. And there was no guarantee of a match. The odds were better than a stranger, given the shared father, but not certainties. She called Carla back in 36 hours. "Not 2 days. If it's medically safe for my baby, I'll agree to cord blood collection," she said. "No promises beyond that. But I also want to meet with Owen's doctors myself. And then I want to meet you." Carla was quiet for a moment. Then, "When?" "Soon." She drove to the hospital on a Thursday, 6 weeks before her due date. She went alone because she had always handled hard things that way. She met with the hematologist first, Dr. Park, a calm, precise woman who walked Sarah through Owen's condition, the transplant procedure, the cord blood collection process in detail. Sarah asked every question she could think of. She took notes. She did not sign anything until she understood it fully. That was her way. Dr. Park said the cord blood was their best remaining option. Owen's condition had progressed faster than initially expected. They were working against a clock, and the clock was not slowing down. Sarah nodded. She asked what she needed to sign. After the paperwork, she sat in the hallway outside Owen's room for 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes to herself. She had made the decision, and she believed it was right, and she was still scared and still angry and still carrying more than any person should have to carry in one season of life. The door at the end of the hall opened. Carla came out. She was smaller than the photograph suggested. The tiredness showed in everything. Her posture, Her eyes, the way she moved. She had been living inside this hospital for weeks, and it had worn her down to something essential. She stopped when she saw Sarah. She stood there like she didn't know which expression to use. Sarah stood up. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Carla said, "Thank you for coming." "I wanted to see him," Sarah said. "If that's okay." Carla pushed the door open. Owen was small in the bed. For lines, a monitor, the dark hair from the photograph. His eyes were open and he looked up when Carla came in. He sat up a little and said, "Mom." "Who's that?" "This is Sarah," Carla said. "She was a friend of your dad's." He studied Sarah for a moment with serious, careful eyes. Then he said, "Did you know my dad?" Sarah had prepared herself for a lot of things on the drive over. She had not prepared herself for that question from that face. "I did," she said. "He was a good person." Owen seemed to think about that. Then he said, "He was going to come see me before he got sick." "I know," Sarah said. "He was." She stayed for an hour. She sat in the chair near his bed and he showed her a drawing he was working on. A truck with a dog sitting in the back. She said it was a good truck. He said he was going to have a dog someday when he got home. She said she thought that was a solid plan. After Owen fell asleep, Sarah and Carla walked to the cafeteria and sat across from each other with bad coffee in paper cups. Carla went first. She said she had known about Sarah, that Daniel had told her 3 years ago he was remarrying. She had not reached out because she didn't know how, and because Daniel had asked her to wait. She said she had never stopped being angry about how he handled it. She had made peace with a lot of things but not that part. "He should have told you about Owen from the beginning," Carla said. "I told him that, directly. He said he would, and then he kept not doing it." "He was afraid I'd leave," Sarah said. "I know." Carla looked at her cup. "He loved you. I want you to know I believe that completely. He wasn't a dishonest man, except in this one specific thing. In this, he was a coward, and it cost both of us." Sarah thought about that for a moment. "He kept every birthday card I ever gave him," she said. "A rubber band around all of them, in his desk drawer." Carla almost smiled. "That sounds like him." They sat there a while longer. Not comfortable, but honest. Two women who had both loved the same man, being as honest as the situation required, which was very honest indeed. Before Sarah left, Carla said, "I know I'm asking a lot of you." "You are," Sarah said. "And I'm doing it anyway. Not for you. For Owen. And maybe a little for Daniel." Carla nodded once. She said, "He would have been glad it was you." Sarah drove home in the dark with both hands on the wheel. She thought about Daniel, about the room in the barn, the cot and the dresser and the photographs. She thought about a man who carried a secret for years and could not put it down until it was too late. She was still angry. She thought she might always carry a little of that. But she was also still in love with the man he actually was. Not the version she had imagined. The real one with all the complicated parts included. That was enough. It had to be, and it was. The baby came 5 weeks later. A girl. 6 pounds, 11 ounces. Long fingers. Dark hair, which surprised Sarah. She had always pictured a blonde, for some reason. The delivery was long and hard. Sarah did it with just the nurses in the room, which was how she had decided she wanted it. Quiet. Just her and the baby, and the work of bringing someone new into the world. The cord blood was collected right after delivery. The lab team was ready and waiting. They had been ready for weeks. Sarah held her daughter for the first time and felt something she did not have a name for. Not just love. Something bigger and deeper and less containable than love. A kind of arrival. She had been moving toward this moment for months, and here it was, and the baby was real and warm and furious about being born, and Sarah laughed even though she was crying. She named her Ruth. It had been her grandmother's name. A woman who had kept going through things that stopped other people. Strong and quiet and loyal. Felt right. felt exactly right. She called Carla from the hospital room that night. The cord blood is collected. The transplant team will be in touch. Carla asked, "How is she?" "She's beautiful," Sarah said. A pause. Then, "Congratulations, Sarah." "Thank you." She didn't know what else to say. She told Carla she'd be in touch, hung up, and looked at Ruth sleeping in the bassinet. She sat with the strangeness of everything. The barn, the letter, the phone call, the hospital visit, this room, this baby, and let it all be exactly as strange as it was. The cord blood was a match. Dr. Park called with the news 6 days later. Partial match, not perfect, but strong enough. Strong enough to proceed. Strong enough to give Owen a real chance. Sarah was in the kitchen when the call came. She sat down right where she was, on the floor with her back against the cabinet, Ruth in her arms, and she listened. Daniel's 2 children. Same father. Different stories, different mothers, different lives. And now one of them was going to help keep the other one alive. She didn't know what to call that. She sat on the kitchen floor with her daughter and tried to find a word for it and couldn't. It wasn't fair. What Daniel had done, the years of hiding, the double life, the fear, that was still true. She still felt it. But the fact of Owen, the fact of Ruth, what the cord blood had made possible, that was true too. You could hold both things at once. She was learning to do that. Owen's transplant happened 6 weeks after Ruth was born. Sarah was not there for it. She was at home with the baby, moving through the exhaustion of new motherhood, calling her mother twice a day, learning how to do this alone. But Carla sent a text from the hospital, short, no drama. "He's in. Procedure went well." Sarah texted back, "I'm glad. Keep me posted." She meant it. Over the weeks that followed, updates came through. Owen's counts improving. Owen eating on his own. Owen asking about the dog again. Sarah read every message and wrote back carefully. Not pushing forward, not pulling away. Just present. She went back to the barn once, about 2 months after Ruth was born. She hadn't been back since the day she found everything. She unlocked the door with the key she had kept and walked in. The workbench was still there. The tools on the pegboards. The partition wall, the small room. She stood in the doorway for a while. She looked at the 3 photographs on the dresser. She picked up the one of Daniel, the younger Daniel, the one with his arm around Carla and Owen in front of them, all 3 smiling. She turned it over. Nothing written on the back. She took that photograph with her. She left the other 2 where they were. She brought it home and set it on the kitchen windowsill, next to a photo of her and Daniel at their wedding. 2 versions of the same man side by side. She looked at both of them for a moment. Then she looked at Ruth in the bouncy seat on the kitchen floor, studying her own fist with the concentrated seriousness of a baby who had just discovered she had hands. That gravity, that brand new focus. It made something loosen in Sarah's chest. Something tight that had been there a long time. She made a decision that afternoon. She was going to tell Ruth about Owen. Not at 6 months old, obviously, but someday. She would sit her daughter down and tell her everything. The barn, the locked door, the photographs, the phone call. The decision she made. What the cord blood did. She would not hide it, not simplify it, not make it easier than it was. She was going to tell her. You saved your brother's life before you were a week old, and you didn't even know it. She was going to tell her that her father was a complicated man who loved his family and carried a secret that cost him more than it needed to. That he died before he could make it right himself. And that the people he left behind had found a way to make it right for him. Because that was the truth. The whole truth. The hard parts and the good parts and the parts she still couldn't put a name to. She was done locking things away. She was done with locked barns. She picked Ruth up from the bouncy seat and held her close, and the baby grabbed a fistful of her mother's hair and held on, the way babies do, the way all of us do when we find something solid enough to hold. "All right," Sarah said, to the baby, to the kitchen, to the empty house, to whoever was listening. "All right, we're going to be okay." And she believed it.